What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Coffee and Analytics, brought to you by 1851franchise.com, the leader in franchise news, kind of. Thank you for joining me. As always, I enjoy giving you whatever insights I can pull across all the brands that we work with. Obviously, goal one in franchising is how do we get more leads, which then turn into more applications, which turn into more deals. And so every time I do these on a monthly basis, by the way, click subscribe. There it is. If you want to see more videos on our YouTube channel. But every time I do these, it's circled around, is there any way to, one, create more exposure for the brands that we work with, and two, gain any insight that shortens the cycle of candidates or perspective into a lead. You've watched these before. 6.4 months has not changed now in 2 years, 3 months since we started surveying. It stays right in that zone of how much time do franchisees tell us it takes them to go from impression to inquiry. And so I get focused on these 6.4 months. Is there anything we can do in marketing, in buzz creation, in website, in any tactical execution that we have access to? Is there anything that we can do to help lead those candidates faster and make them more prepared when they come to the table? I'm going to go through some of the details that I sent out in the note this month, but I'm going to say two things that are top of mind with me. One is the value of the franchisee. And if you watched FranX yesterday, which FranX we've turned this into very similar to this into a webinar so that we can get it on people's calendars. But one of the topics was the dream franchise buyer. Have you identified this person? Who is this persona? And so I want you to start there. I want you to think about who is your dream candidate? What do they look like? So that now, whatever tactic we're going to use to get in front of this candidate, it is hyper-focused on this dream candidate, dream franchisee. An extension to that is, I think we go to a franchise cocktail reception and people talk about how many deals they've done or units they've signed. And it's interesting to me that two brands could say we each signed 10 units in the last quarter. Brand one, their 10 could be scaling franchisees. Brand two could be barely financially capitalized franchisees. And so you look at the value of those candidates back to the system, they're going to be two different journeys. Even if the AUVs are the same, underqualified, not scaling franchisee versus qualified scaling franchisee are vastly different. And so now, and this is going to make it somewhat complex when you start thinking about your lead generation strategies, because our KPI dashboards end up going traffic to your website, number of leads that have come in, how many of those have turned into applications, how many of those have shown up to Discovery Day, and how many of them have turned into deals. And I'm saying, yes, that's the floor, that's the foundation. But what is the value of each of those franchisees? Are they a 1 or are they a 10? And so a 10 is someone that's going to scale. A 1 is someone who is looking for, job income replacement. They're not going to scale as much. I was talking to, I did a podcast with Boxwood Partners yesterday. And I said, let's talk about when you're advising a franchisor through the process to sell and exit the business, what are some of the key things? And he said, unit level economics, validation, including FBR reviews. What is the strength of those? And then the value of each franchisee. I said, it's interesting to me because I think we always talk about go get me leads and get me the deal, but we don't talk about the value of the franchisee. And he said, well, look, if a franchisee is going from 1 to 5 to 10 to 20, that exit is going to be worth more to you, the franchisor, than someone that's going to 1, maybe 1 to 2. And so that's closing the gap between sold, not open. And so I'm setting the tone here. We figure out who our dream franchisee. Let's just say it's someone that has the financial bandwidth to open up 3 units. We're going to award them 1. They're going to have funds to scale, and they're going to have funds for the rainy day. That in my opinion, is the dream candidate. Yesterday on FranX, Brent said, dream buyer. Who's your dream buyer? Build the right magnets to get them into the funnel. Build the lead generation strategy through SEO, PPC, content, PR, etc. Build your automations. So candidate comes in, what do the drip campaigns do? And then make sure you have effective recruiting. Like that's the magic on that side. And then we start taking that stuff and we start looking over on what is the value of that franchisee at exit. And so you start taking those 2 different buckets and it starts guiding you into how are you going to adjust the way that you're looking at franchisees. And let's say you report into someone, CEO, and you come to the table, maybe there's a different way that you present your candidates to say, this is a scaling franchisee or this is a dream buyer and this one is not. Because if you in franchise recruitment or development are able to drive people in that are going to scale, you've now increased the deal value back to your franchise or back to your company. And so the value of these deals can be vastly different. And so I'm thinking about these 2 things. Who's our dream franchisee? Have we really defined this? The right magnets? Are we setting up the right tools to get our messaging in front of these dream candidates? Are we building the right lead generation strategies? I'm going to pause there and give you this insight. We're deeply studying all types of ads right now. We're going through a very aggressive ad audit with 1851 to understand, we have Google, we have retargeting, we have Facebook, we have LinkedIn. Are these the right tools to build the right lead generation into the magnets? Magnets is the positioning of the story, the videos, etc. Are these the right tools? Facebook in particular, I'm going to give you a very basic insight, and anybody that's run Facebook ads has run into this. The ads get rejected for some sort of either content that you're putting out there or the targeting that you're putting out there. And so what we've found, and as a part of this deep dive, is if we put restrictive financials on there saying, we want to go after the top 10% of household incomes, that attached to a franchise message increases the likelihood of that ad being rejected. Okay, so if we remove the financial side, now we're going to spend money to go after the wrong people as well. They could be in the right market, but the wrong people from a financial standpoint who could never buy us, which in turn turns into these tire kicker conversations of we've drove leads. Are they the right people? Yes or no. So I'm going to park Facebook over here and get over to LinkedIn. And we know the right audience is there. We're gaining the insight from the broker community that's doing proactive outreach and you can see it. If any of you log into LinkedIn, you're going to see a million messages from people saying, hey, based on your background, you'd be great for owning a franchise. All right, these messages are being deployed by the millions, and they're now driving people into a funnel that are having a conversation with a franchise consultant to talk about whether franchising makes sense for them. So we know the candidates are on LinkedIn. Challenge 1 is the cost per click is higher. Challenge 2 is like the ad forms are not the same as Facebook. So it's almost like if Facebook and LinkedIn had a child, now all of a sudden we might have the right lead generation strategies. We go over to Google, like historically we've bought competitor terms because in my viewpoint, brand X, we're trying to obviously drive an increase both top, middle, and bottom funnel. So why not target a competitor term? But still, you'd have to search for competitor and the word franchise. And so when we start looking at how many impressions come up on these terms, sometimes they're not a lot. And so now I'm putting all these words together to say that's part of the complexity of lead generation as it reflects or reacts back to franchising, is that we want a ton of leads. And the reality is your brand might only be conditioned to have tens of leads. But of those tens of leads, the likelihood of them converting is higher, and the likelihood of you getting a scaling franchisee versus one that's doing income replacement is increased. Therefore, the winning strategy is tens of leads, not hundreds of leads. And it's a very difficult thing to settle on. I have a client who a little bit turbulent on their viewpoint on lead generation right now. And I said, look, you're getting deals done, right? At a pace that you haven't seen in recent years. And the answer is, well, yeah, but we want more leads. And so it's just a tough equation, because if it were me, the indicator of success is our business growing? Yes or no? Are we having impact? Yes or no? And how does that relate back to what our actions or activities are? So a lot of words in my opening statement to say, this is the problem. I said in my note, I said, in franchising, we are pretty black and white. How many leads did I get this month against how much did I spend? Even though the leads that come in this month, like seeds of a plant, they take time to grow. They probably have nothing to do with your actions of that month, or very little to do with the actions of that month. So when you say I spent, X amount of money this month, and here's how many leads I got, you're looking at you're correlating the leads back to the wrong thing. What is my cost per lead versus what is the value of my deal and the enterprise impact to the business? What percentage of leads turn into quality conversions versus spending more on fewer people? This is the topics that I'm getting into. So, and the reason we get into this place is because of franchise sales pressures. Obviously, we have someone saying, "Go get me more deals." I've mentioned this before. I had a client, no longer a client. CEO comes to us and says, I want 25 deals next year. And I said, well, how many did you do last year? And he said, I did 10. I said, what was your budget? And he said, $125,000. I said, great. I go, so for 25 deals, we need about 300,000. He goes, no, I'm giving you 125. I said, but your data points towards you're going to need to deploy more resources to get use the right lead generation into the right magnets. You're not going to get 25. Well, that's your job. Your passes, they ended up at 13 deals. I said, I said this. And he goes, yeah, but you didn't do your job because I wanted 25. That's a challenge as it relates to the pressures in franchise development. Put in my note that I often celebrate Slim Chickens, and I've mentioned this story a few times. I remember being in the room with the founders, and I said, what is winning? And it was all about this club. And the club was going to be 25 franchisees who could each open 5 units. And I look at Slim Chickens as a brand that stuck true to let's go get those dream scaling franchisees. And now flash forward, it's a tremendous business, one of the 1% of franchise brands that exist. And I go back to that moment, and it's like, well, how are you able to have that mindset? And it's the gray area and the culture and the way that you're approaching it. And I think that's the shift. That if you really want to make the shift, it's going to take you getting uncomfortable with what you know about how leads work over what period of time, and then the depth of those leads. That a lead or a franchise buyer is not created equal. One buyer could have much greater scale than another. So as I always do, actually before I jump into that, if any of you have questions, I see some comments are coming in here. Have questions that you want me to hit, I will make sure that I hit them as we continue through our discussion, or me having a discussion with you, because I'm talking solo. It's like a radio program. Okay, so this month I decided to look at 2024's, this year's responses to one piece of information you wish the franchisor gave you in the buying process. The reason I'm asking this question and wanting to understand the answers is because now if we think, okay, this is what the franchisor can give me in the buying process to make me feel more positive about moving forward, then I can give our clients the tools to say, here's the content that we need to have in our toolbox in order to influence and shorten that time of 6.4 months. So here are the responses. And I just pulled them straight from our profiling with really no editing so that I could share these with you. And if you haven't seen this, it's in the note. It'll be on the website following this conversation. But one, transparency and costs. The amount of money that is needed, especially living in California, it is exponentially higher than most states for startup businesses. I wish they had been upfront. Here's the challenge with that statement. You're talking about transparency. And, I don't think this is completely on the franchisor. I mean, the construct of the FDD puts limitations, and it almost allows us as franchise brands to lead with the wrong metrics. Yeah, we put a range in there, but that doesn't mean it's perfect. In my opinion, and when I'm evaluating FDDs, the first thing that I look at is operating capital, which tends to be obviously three months operating capital that goes into the startup costs. And I look at that and say, okay, so we go all the way back to this dream franchisee. How much money do they have? Well, would that operating capital replace 3 months of their salary or what they should be making? And the answer is no. Then I increase that number. And so what that allows for, there's that gray area again. It allows for a little bit of gray area in the investment so that your candidate understands there's a little bit more wiggle room that could potentially go into that build out. And the challenge with obviously buying a franchise, different than buying a house or buying a car. Well, maybe not a house. Car, you pay the price, you drive it off the lot. A house, you buy it, you get in the house, and you're like, oh man, I got to fix this. And so it actually costs more money than your purchase price, which I guess that's closer to what franchising is. Can you be more, how do you become more transparent with the costs? I would almost give the resources back to the franchise candidate to talk with other franchisees on how much it costs them. Therefore, they have resources to ask on what was the cost of X, so that at least they're pointing to someone in the system. Brag about the true business impact. I think they are giving me more than expected. I should actually go pull up what brand this was. What a great statement. I think they're giving me more than expected. That comes in support, that comes in the model of what they bought, but that also means the gap is that brand is underselling in the marketing of their business opportunity. And that leaves a huge gap that should be closed because that brand did not sell at the depth that it should have. That transparency and ROI takes a long time to make money. The training process is great, but long. So you need to save up money. There comes operating capital again. And this comes to an issue with the way that most item 19s are laid out. We talk about these gross sales. Sometimes those gross sales are for units that have been open multiple years. We don't really give full transparency always into what does first year sales look like on average to set those expectations. So the expectation setting can be set on false numbers. I remember all the old Jimmy John ads where there would be like this big number and then a little asterisk that says like 17 reporting locations. It's like, that's misleading in the potential that someone's like, oh, look how much money I can make for investing, $400,000 in the sandwich brand. I think that's where if you want to take the slim chickens approach, the transparency on the front end back to the candidate will guide them the right way, that therefore they're enthusiastic when they get in, so they continue to swallow up more territory, which then turns into the scaling franchisee that we're going after as a dream franchisee. Truth in that business is tough, just that it's harder than I thought. Some surprises in terms of licenses and insurances. I guess it's a little bit of transparency in what happens after you sign the franchise agreement, which I do think is a good operational document to have. Truth that business is tough. A thorough understanding of administrative steps before paperwork was signed, legal, etc. That's again, like, probably everybody has a standard. Like, you submit an application and this is what happened next. There's opportunity to maybe give a little bit more disclosure on that. Truth and timing, the actual timeline, that is hard to pin down, but would have been nice to know. Always feeling like we are running behind. We are not, but I'm worried about that. This is a big issue for a franchisee. They've signed their franchise agreement. They're now bleeding cash, and cash is going out. And there's no revenue source, and it's just money out, money out, money out, money out, money out. And when money's going out and there's nothing coming back in return, it takes a really, really, really tough mindset to be able to battle through that. And so how do you give them the scaffolding? In my opinion, this is the value of your business coaching that happens the second you sign your franchise agreement. Deal signed, ink on paper, payment in, champagne popped, consultant call. Consultant call starts talking through what's going to happen next. So your business consultant is actually now giving them the tools and expectation setting on what's going to happen. And so, sometimes having a shoulder to cry on can help do that. But that also impacts your support. Like we talk about the support that you're going to get in real estate selection or the support that you're going to get around opening. What about the support you're going to get from having someone to talk to? Even if that's a peer program that happens internally by putting another franchisee in place. There's obviously areas of opportunity to leverage that for signing and execution. Transparency and cost, better breakdown of the costs, had to figure it out piece by piece. We've kind of touched on that. Transparency in the business checklist. Information about the outside companies you need to work with, payroll and media people, etc., and how long everything takes. It's, again, like setting expectations. Transparency and ROI, certain things they can and can't disclose. Perfect world would be to see everyone's financial data, but they can't do that. Can, just in the way that you disclose that information. They do give average and other data points. So this is someone that is looking at those numbers and they're struggling to understand it. Obviously, in your process of evaluating a franchise, lean on other franchisees. It's an easy win. Truth that business is tough. You're under the impression that the franchisor is going to solve your problems, and I learned that it does come in a box for me, but I have to figure out a ton on my own. They were clear on that, but it took me a while to understand that. I think that's just that's the process of buying a franchise. It's not as easy as maybe sometimes it's perceived to be. Just because you buy a franchise doesn't mean it's that much easier. You're obviously skipping the line a bit because there's a brand created operation, supply chain, etc. But that is probably just coaching opportunity. So when we look through all those things, this comes to the last of those 5 buckets. Who's your dream candidate? Do you have the right magnets set up so that when that dream candidate is introduced to your brand, that they make, they stick to your brand and follow through? Do you have the right lead generation? Have you built your automations? And that last one, effective recruiting. All of these things are easily solved through effective recruiting. And what happens before call one, at call one, at presentation, to discovery day, and then at signing, like this is all part of this. And again, in my opinion, we're not searching for leads. We're not searching for applications. We're not searching for deals. We're searching for franchisees who are motivated, ready to scale, and build wealth for their families. And this is such a critical thing in a world where more is more. 25 franchisees for Slim Chickens who could each open 5 as their foundation. Look where they are today. Unit level economics continues to climb because you've brought in the right operators. You want to see the difference between strong unit level economics and not. I was at a conference. I've mentioned this many times before. There were the top 3 franchisees on stage. Number 3 came from middle of the pack all the way to number 3. The person that was leading the panel said, tell us your secret. They said, I spent 10% of every dollar on marketing. Franchisee next to me in the audience elbows me aside and goes, that guy's an idiot. I'm like, he's on stage. You want franchisees who are going to spend, who are going to operate their businesses right, who are going to treat their employees well, so that they can scale their business. Like, these are all the fundamentals. And if we bring in the wrong franchisee who doesn't spend, who doesn't operate, who doesn't scale, who doesn't treat their employees right, it actually hurts the valuation of your business. And it hurts that big thing that Boxwood said is, how do unit level economics look? And so that's what's the crazy part about this. So often in franchising, fran devs put on an island, operations on another island, marketing on another island. And you see how this starts working together. Everything is development of franchisees, and the organizations that champion around this concept are the ones that end up growing the best. I'm going to break these into themes. The statements of those franchisees were the costs, what it takes to be a business owner, timeline to open, go build those pieces of content. So pretty simple. The action items are build the content for each umbrella, leveraging franchisees as the source, what I learned about buying a franchise costs, etc. Put each into your drip campaign content as educational resources. This hits some of your automation. Send a package of all 3 stories to your cold leads, as if this was if this was what current franchisees are saying and thinking. Chances are stalled out candidates are thinking it too. Build into your website content. So this is a new thing that we're working on. We're adding the resource section of the university into the websites so that we can educate the buyers, which I talked about in the last one, on what franchising is. And this goes into that toolkit. And then build it into your discovery day, knowing that these are the things that franchisees are saying they wish they would have been told. Here's part of your agenda, and just take what I just wrote and said and put that into your agenda. And it should be interesting to see what those outcomes are, because now you give you the insights of what franchisees are saying. Go build the counters to make them work as a part of the puzzle. All right, last few minutes. Let me just see. I'll put up a few comments that says, if I am brand agnostic consultant helping my clients to potentially explore hundreds of different businesses, where do I find the tens or hundreds of quality clients for exploration, and who will be ready, willing, and able to invest? So last part is obviously very critical. We're all looking for qualified and ready to buy franchisees. Long time ago, 10 years, maybe more than that. 10 years seems to be my go-to number. It's probably longer than that. Remember, restaurant brands would say we want people with restaurant experience. Today, restaurant brands want people who have the money and qualified and ready to buy, and we'll match you with someone who can operate the business. So lots has changed on who that dream candidate is, but we're all going after the same person. Gary's asking, how do I go find those tens? Here are the 2 most important things for you, Gary, and from my viewpoint when it comes to sales. What is your personal brand? What's Gary's story? Because I buy from Gary. I'm going to trust you. It's the exact reason a buyer finds a real estate agent they can trust, and they say, this is what I'm looking for. I want a modern house at $1 million. And the real estate agent comes back, and they work together to cut through until they finally find that dream house, and they make an offer, and hopefully it goes through. You're in a very similar situation. If you look at the real estate agents, to pull a card off of their playbook, they all build their personal brand. They have their flyers, they have their Facebook pages that they're connecting with. Their LinkedIn isn't just about, buy a house. It's like, look at my family. And so they're taking a personal approach to business. So that's one, because again, it's same for you, Gary. You got to do, who's your dream franchise buyer, who we just said we want the tens. What's our right magnets? The Gary story. What's the right lead generation strategy? Well, the Gary story now got other people to buy in. Good real estate agents take great people who they helped and they turn them into a testimonial or some sort of story that talks about the journey that they went on and why they used that agent. I think for the franchise broker consultant world, that's one of the biggest misses. You have tremendous success stories of people that you've led to buying that dream house, dream business. Leverage their stories, put that front and center. Now, if you want to be tricky or specific on this, now what you do is you extract out who's that person. So let's say, Gary, you worked with me, Nick. And so now the story says marketing CEO buys into franchise X. And now you take this and you target marketing CEOs on a LinkedIn ad campaign so that they read that story about this person, which then will relate them back to saying, I could do this as well. So that's using humans on multiple sides to get lift. The last thing I'll say on that, unfortunately, if I take all of our brands and just look at Facebook ad spend, we're at about $2 million a year in Facebook ads. And I still could go back to the beginning and say, I'm really thinking through how do we put the right messaging or tactical ad buys in front of the right people, and is Facebook the right solution right now? However, I think, roughly $2 million, there are a lot of people and brands fighting for the same people. This is where, if it's all brands in this fishing pond and you, Gary, are out there saying, well, let me explain to you who I am, what I stand for, and how I go through the process, it will help you get some lift. So that's my long-winded statement. Natasha said, what advice can you share for emerging franchise concepts working to sign their first unit? Where would you focus your market? I'll put your right one up. Marketing dollars. Okay, so for an emerging brand, one, it's tough. So let me start there. First, let's go. We'll skip past the dream franchise buyer. Yesterday on FranX, we talked about if we had to just go get one deal, what would we do? For every business that exists, my hope is that you have one corporate unit at least, and you have customers of that one corporate unit, which now drive revenue, which has created a proof of concept, which shows your unit level economics. All of us, if we went and yelled in the street, does anybody have any connection to franchising? You're gonna find someone. On Wednesday this week, I was in Sacramento. My Uber driver overheard a conversation that I was having in the back seat. Naturally, he goes, "Are you in franchising?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "I just bought a franchise. I'm becoming a first-time franchisee." It's like they're all over the place. Sometimes just asking for help from your customers and celebrating the fact that you're going to go on this journey to build your second business. Your first business is your franchise, your concept. Your second business is your franchise. Simply reaching out to your customers and asking for help. Like, do you know of anybody is a good starting point. The reality is, for all emerging brands, it's a lot of crapshoots unless you have a business that has a clear point of differentiation where the cost to get in is sound to how much I can make. Then you're crapshooting right now. We helped a brand. We took a brand that was stalled out, and we've done this a few times, an emerging brand. Last year, they ended up doing, I think, 12 deals in their second and a half full year. They had done none in their first run. We repositioned their message. We said, your business opportunity that you're presenting to the world is wrong. Let's create two models there, which we did. We redid their website to put humans front and center so that you could see a relatable person. You always bet on the jockey, not on the horse when it comes to franchising. Then we made sure that the messaging that was going out to the broker community was strong enough, because they're active in there, so that they could think about it. Then we built the drumbeat so that there was a constant flow of noise and buzz in the marketplace. Then we tied in the limited digital dollars that we had to make sure that noise was getting amplified so that people, brokers and franchise buyers alike, were seeing the noise and that equal deals. Ultimately, I think the hardest part about marketing dollars is you might spend $10,000 on say Facebook ads or Google ads and say, I got nothing. But again, we got to go back to the beginning. 6.4 months. Think of how many messages got in front of you. Let's just take a car. I can look out the window right now. A Lexus, Honda, Toyota, a bus. I'm not going to buy a bus. But those are all impressions. Now, if well, maybe I am going to buy a bus. It would be pretty cool to drive a bus. Let's say now an ad hits me that says, Nick, did you ever dream about owning a bus? I'm like, I'm not going to own a bus. Then I see a friend is driving a bus. I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. And so I could build out 6.4 months of impression. There's so much noise that gets delivered that it's hard to attribute success back to a singular activity. But for Natasha, if you go and you identify your dream candidate, right magnets as you've defined your story, the right lead generation is accessing and leveraging your customers and asking them for help. Friends and family tend to be the earliest adopters into the business. The automation side, I don't know that you have to worry about right away as a emerging franchisor. And then make sure you have an effective recruiting strategy that when you have a conversation with them, educate the candidate first, tell them what franchising is, then tell them about your business. Give away as much information as possible. Be willing to be a giver that ends up giving you the pathway to success. And I've said this before, I don't envy the emerging brand. It is hard. It takes capital. It takes hustle. It takes grit. It takes being vulnerable. It takes you putting content out there into the world to build that drumbeat. It takes a lot. But if you're willing to put the work in, I promise you'll find the right candidate, especially if you've engineered the right unit level economics. So I think that's my last question that appeared in here. Actually, I'll just pop this one. Fred said, is the Facebook rejected ad personal Facebook or business Facebook? It's business Facebook. That's the main generator of ads. However, if you're verified, you can now do some personal ads on there. That's business accounts. Just want to make sure that I hit that, Fred, since you put that question in there. So again, I'm going to end with this. Go figure out for the next month, figure out who your dream franchisee is. Write it down. Now hand that back to your marketing team and say, how are we going to get in front of this dream buyer? Go to your CEO and say, we need to change expectations. We're going to go get people in that could open up 3 of our businesses, not people that can open 1. So I know that you said you wanted the 25 deals. How about I go get you the 10 that are going to scale in our business, that when we look at just royalty over a 3-year period, you're going to be very satisfied, because if they open up 3, let's say 1 is $75,000, 3 is now $225,000 over a 3-year period. And you multiply that over and over and over again. That's the Slim Chickens magic. Go get the right people, give them the right information, and you too can win at franchising. I'm grateful for all of you who watched this month's version. It went a little bit long. I don't think I've ever talked this long. So thanks for participating. If you have more questions, you can always reach out to me on LinkedIn or through email. Appreciate you. Let's go make it a great rest of Q1 and gear up for a stellar Q2. Have a great weekend. This is Coffee and Analytics. See you later.